Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wonder and Widgets race guide. In this episode we're covering the Centaur, what they are and what they do, so without further ado, let's get started. Centaur run wild and free, living in their herd and highly connected to nature. As a Centaur you gain a +2 bonus to strength and a +1 bonus to wisdom. Centaur are typically between 6 and 7 feet tall, so your size is considered medium, and your base walking speed is 40 feet per round. But now let's go over all the different abilities you gain when you play a Centaur. So your first trait is less of an ability and more of a categorization. Your trait Fey means that your creature type is Fey instead of humanoid, so you're more like pixies and sprites than you are of humans or other typical races in the D&D lore. Your second trait is Charge. With this trait, if you move at least 30 feet in a straight line toward a target and then hit that target with a melee weapon attack on the same turn, you can then follow up that attack with a bonus action, making one attack against the target with your hooves. And speaking of your hooves, that is your next trait, Hooves. With this trait, your hooves are considered natural melee weapons, which you can use to make unarmed strikes, and if you hit with them, you deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage plus your strength modifier and damage. And now adding to your horse motif, you have the trait Equine Build. With this trait, you count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity and the weight you can push, drag, or lift. It's kind of like Powerful Build, except a little different. And how it's a little different is that with Equine Build, any climb that requires hands and feet is especially difficult for you because of your horse legs. When you make such a climb, each foot of movement costs you 4 extra feet instead of the 1 extra foot that it usually costs. And your final trait is Survivor. With this trait, you gain proficiency in either the animal handling, medicine, nature, or survival skills. But now that we've gone over your abilities, let's talk about how you can get the most out of them. So, Fey is a really weird but kind of interesting trait. In my opinion, it's more so for flavor, but it does have its unique perks. One of which is granting you full immunity to certain spells. So any spell that says it targets things like specifically humanoids, you are immune to it. For example, these are things like Charm Person, Dominate Person. You catch the drift. So in the future, if your DM says, I cast Charm Person on you, or Hold Person, or some sort of enchantment, or even other sort of effect that says it targets a specific humanoid, you're immune to it because you are a Fey. However, because of your categorization type of being a Fey, this does actually open you up to being susceptible to other types of spells that I think most DMs wouldn't really think about. So your second trait is Charge. With this ability, in addition to your increased movement speed, allows you to have a much higher presence on the battlefield. You can deal a bit more damage than other races can, and Hooves synergizes very well with the natural modifiers of this race, gaining the benefits from a higher strength modifier. Your next trait, Equine Build, is much like Powerful Build, as I was mentioning earlier. You have an increased carrying capacity, however there's the caveat of not really being very good at climbing. So anything that does actually involve climbing is going to be incredibly difficult for you. However, there are some fun things that you can do with Equine Build. You can literally carry the team on your back. I know mountain combatants rulings get a little weird in D&D from time to time, but if there was ever a time to do a mountain combatant sort of situation, the Centaur and other party member composition is the time to do it. And your final trait, Survivor, lets you be much more skilled and well balanced in regards to creating your characters. You get the ability to get 1 additional free skill, and most of these skills also synergize very well with having a naturally higher wisdom, which you gain from this race. Things such as survival, animal handling, and medicine go hand in hand with having a higher wisdom, whereas nature is more intelligence-based. But now that we've gone over your abilities, let's go over what classes synergize the best with this race. Thanks to your natural bonuses to strength as well as a majority of your abilities, you are more suited to combat-heavy roles. Classes such as Paladin, Fighter, and Barbarian will find themselves doing very well with this race. In addition, also having a high mobility will be especially nice for these classes since they don't usually get too many mobility options. Personally, Barbarian and Paladin will probably be the most fun and have the most unique synergy with this race for these reasons. Barbarian will enjoy having extra movement from the Centaur, and this is going to do very well with the Barbarian's extra movement feature. And Paladin will love Centaur because of the movement, but for all you players out there that are thinking about it, yes, you can smite with your hooves. Your hooves are natural melee weapons. When you smite, it needs to be considered a melee weapon of any sort. So the fact that your hooves are natural melee weapons, it checks out. So switching gears here to some of the other classes, a majority of them won't really find themselves utilizing a lot of the other features of the Centaur. Many of the Centaur's abilities are heavily combat oriented. but the casters, especially the wisdom casters, will get the most usage out of the Centaur. Having a higher mobility will give these classes an added boost of survivability by keeping themselves away from the fight and being able to run away from danger. In addition, the wisdom casters will have a higher wisdom, which will end up fueling the Centaur's survivor trait even more. But now that we've gone over the different classes that synergize the best with this build, let's go over how we can better bring this race to your table, both as a DM and a player. Centaurs are swift and are always on the move. They are usually very rare to see in society and can be found in a lot of different places and environments. However, they are almost always seen traveling with their herds. Some questions to ask yourself when bringing a Centaur to the table is, what would the Centaur be doing here? Are they by themselves? And if so, why? And where's the rest of their herd? These are a few thoughts, questions, and ideas that can be used to inspire your characters and NPCs, and as always, we invite you to use these or come up with your own. And with that, that's all the time that we have today for the video. We hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, then please like and subscribe for even more D&D content. We really appreciate it. Comment down below for what topics and ideas you'd like for us to go over next. And with that, we'll be seeing you all again next time. Goodbye, everyone.